Welcome into Rob Ride's Gen X Pop Culture, and today we are talking about Band of Brothers Episode 9. With me, as always, is Heather. How are you today, Heather?
Doing great. How are you, Rob?
Doing all right. I did not sleep well last night, so
Oh God, that sucks.
I missed church and had to sleep in, and just gosh, finally got rid of the things that were bothering me. But like with all the pollen and everything coming through, just something was bugging me last night. It
Yeah,
was driving me nuts.
yeah. I hear you with the allergies. It's
Yeah, it's never fun.
yeah.
But we've got an interesting episode today. A lot of people think that this might be one of the better episodes of Band of Brothers, and I think it is, but it's probably the most difficult to watch. What do you think overall?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that is, anything dealing with the Holocaust and that, you know, just anything around that is going to be disturbing and difficult to watch. I don't know if it's one of my favorite episodes, as far as centering on Easy Company and the things that they did, but it's definitely really impactful.
Yeah, it definitely is. So we're going to break it down. There are a bunch of key characters that are in this episode. I think really one of the primary characters that this focuses on is Lieutenant Nixon, which I think is kind of interesting. We get some of
Mhm.
his background, but you've got a lot of other players in this, and they're actually in Germany. And we're going to talk about the different things that the enlisted men do, different things that some of the officers do. We're going to talk about one of the towns they go into, and we're going to talk obviously about a concentration camp that they discover within the show. And we know in the reality, Easy Company didn't liberate a concentration camp. However, according to the Stephen Ambrose book, they did take care of some people that had come out of the concentration camp when they were trying to care for these people. So
Yeah,
they did see
interesting.
some of the signs of the war. So it was just kind of awful to see and witness, and very hard to take, but very interesting and very needy in order to reinforce the points about World War II, though. So
Yeah,
um,
I think if anything covering World War II like this, that's gonna be one of the components that you're gonna see in the show.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think it pairs well with other movies and other things that even Spielberg has done. For instance, Schindler's List and some other stuff. So um, 2104 Dogface says, okay, for this talk, I'm going to do a shot of that 69.
Good. Yeah, good
Yes.
for you, man. We know Nix was having a hard time, finding his, VAT 69 to try to sustain him. It was getting a little rough there in this episode.
Nothing but the best for Miss Nixon's little boy.
Boy, yeah.
All right. Well, Heather, do you want to read the summary of it and we'll talk a little bit about the episode?
Sure, let me pull this up. Let's see. The men of Easy Company are now in Germany, aware that the Germans are surrendering by the thousands and the war is winding down. With more time to reflect, some of the men are wondering if it was worth it and begin to question whether the sacrifices they and their absent colleagues have made were worth it. The question is answered when they come across a concentration camp and they see firsthand the atrocities committed by the Yazis. Captain Nixon has returned from a jump behind enemy lines that did not go well and resulted in many deaths. He's drinking heavily and has been demoted from regimental to battalion intelligence. Soon after the mustache man's death, they are ordered to the Bavarian resort of Berchtesgaden, to the Yahtzee leader's mountaintop retreat, which is the Eagle's Nest, which is a beautiful place, even given the circumstances.
Yeah, can't wait to see
Um,
it. Can't wait to take pictures from there, especially of the Alps. But
yeah,
yeah, so we can't talk about this episode without mentioning the Holocaust. And, I don't know that we need to really get into all the events leading up to the Holocaust, but we do need to mention, first of all, number one, it is real, it's historic fact. I, I cringe when anybody tries to deny it. I have to admit, I've never been to Germany. I've been to a couple of museums here in the United States. There's a Christian museum in Dallas that I've been to that actually has a wing of the Holocaust, and it shows some of the atrocities and some of the things that happened in concentration camps, which was eye-opening, scary, and sad. The other thing that I saw is I went on a mission trip to Rwanda, and I don't know if you. This is a side note. Rwanda had a
Yeah.
genocide in the 90s.
Mhm.
We went through the
Yeah,
genocide
gruesome.
museum. Yeah, and it was every bit as gruesome as what we see
Oh,
here.
absolutely. Yeah,
Um,
unbelievable.
I just go through that museum, and it's museum and people are buried there, and there were people with memorial services there. And this was 2016 when I went there,
Mhm.
and I get out and you couldn't get out of there without Niagara Falls just coming down your face. I mean,
Right.
if you're a human being, oh my gosh, it was so sad. Rwanda was a little bit different because it was the Hutus and the Tutsis, but still, nonetheless, humanity and human life being killed over racial differences.
Which
Um,
yeah, which is a lot of seems to me always superficial type
mhm.
things, like people create these differences, create a lot of hate, kill each other, and, when you look at it, you think, "Really, what was the sense of that? What was really the purpose?" It is, it's really tragic what people are capable of doing in some circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, it's just people are dehumanized and turned into what you are rather than who you are. Um, so in Germany at the time, the Holocaust, state-sponsored persecution and murder of 6 million European Jews by the Nazi regime and all its allies and collaborators. In addition to the Holocaust, Germany also prosecuted and persecuted millions and hundreds of other victims. So you had
Yeah.
you had some Christians. One famous one is Dietrich Bonhoeffer, uh, gypsies, other people of other types of religions and beliefs were
A
all
lot of
persecuted.
Eastern Europeans too.
Oh yeah, very much so. Yes, Eastern Europeans especially. So it's sad. And I know I'm going to see a concentration camp on my trip there, and that's going to be interesting. But my goodness, it's a sad event, and I think there's very much a purpose to this. And this episode is more not so much Easy Company and all they did. There are some things that are in the episode that happened to them, but I think it's to give you an idea of the other reasons why we were over there fighting,
Mhm.
and it gives you perspective on World War II in general. They were not just a bad group trying to conquer the world; they were bad to people that lived near them and lived among them. So um, it's just crazy. 2104 Dogface says the book "Ordinary Men, Reserve Police Battalion 101" is a powerful read about this. SP4H says his father took a tour of Dachau back in the 80s. He said it felt just eerie. There were no birds around or anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been to Dachau. It is pretty creepy. Um, Definitely. Just yeah, being in those spots and seeing all that, they have a lot of photographs and yeah, it's pretty creepy.
Yeah, I mean, so we'll see. I'm going to tour. I think it is Dachau that I'm going to tour when I go
Probably
there.
because it's in Munich,
Yeah,
outside of Munich, so it's
yep.
close.
So that's where I'm going to go. So
Yeah.
I'll see it for myself, and I'll be able to kind of compare it to what I saw in Rwanda. But yeah, it's a tragic thing, and just human life. I just
Yeah,
it
I
breaks my
think,
heart. Yeah.
Rwanda, I mean, the people had gotten crazy and, like, ethnic violence and did a lot of horrible things to one side, the side that was more powerful, committed awful atrocities. Dachau is the weird thing about it is how systemic and planned it was, right? I mean, it was a planned extermination of people. It wasn't like a passionate violence. I mean, it was in wartime, but you know how you think like in the heat of a battle, people can commit atrocities when they're overcome. This was thought out, cold, systematic, let's set up the ovens, let's cremate the bodies, let's use the pieces. I mean, don't want to get too gross, but just the planning behind it and how thorough it was is what's really like chilling that people thought that out.
Absolutely. And the other aspect is um I've heard in the eastern side, on the eastern front, the Russians uncovered Auschwitz
Yeah.
and some others that were even worse.
Yeah.
2104 Dogface says the American Heritage Museum got a rail car from one of the camps. I was able to climb into it before they restored it, and it was very eerie with the smell.
Yeah.
Can't imagine that. I mean, oh my gosh. Um, so the other thing that I'll mention real quick, in Rwanda, I brought back a newspaper with me that basically said that they were extraditing a person from Kenya who was involved some
Mm.
some 20 years later. So
Yeah, I
um,
believe it.
yeah, I mean it's just crazy stuff. So but anyway, yeah, that we can't talk about this episode without talking about that kind of stuff. And it's eerie, but it's important part of history so that we learn from it, and hopefully it doesn't ever get repeated. Let's talk about some of the key characters in this. We mentioned Nix. Who were some other ones that stood out to you, Heather?
So, yeah, Nixon, who I think it's interesting to see because we've seen other of the men at a breaking point earlier, and he seems like he's there now, where he had always been a little bit aloof and seemed unbothered previously. So I think what they do with his character is super interesting in this. We see Spears, who's in acquisition mode. He's just grabbing up everything he can. Luz, who's still hilarious. Picante, who does not have the moves like Janovic, who actually I think he's got the moves like Jagger because he's getting he's getting busy and Picante's not. We see Webster quite a bit again. O'Keefe, who's a replacement, gives us another new perspective. Winters, who it's always great to see him, and Liebgott, who's got some baby making plans for after the war.
Yep, and Lee God has a key moment in this episode. So it's interesting. So uh, the book talks about how they were brought off the line and brought back to France for a while, and then over into Germany. And so in France is where they got the accommodations, and it's where O'Keefe and some of the other replacements join in. And it's interesting reading about that. And Winters actually had to get these new men up to speed because there was a speculation: are they going to jump into Berlin? How much resistance are they going to face? The thing about this, really quick to set everything up, they're heading into Germany, and they're assuming at some point there's going to be house to house hand fighting that they may have to do. There's also worries that Hitler may lock himself up in his retreat and still communicate to the rest of the Germans to continue fighting and to have guerrilla warfare. And so that's a concern that they had going in. So it's not just, hey, take Berlin and it's over for Germany. It's, let's make sure we take care of everything around it and then surround it and come in so that we don't have to fight this guerrilla hand to hand, house to
Right.
house combat. So,
And I
uh,
don't think that, was as big of a concern as what they had initially thought, right? I think
mhm,
most of
yeah.
the Germans were ready and willing to surrender, and
Mhm,
maybe like Hitler, I mean, his top guys honestly were like thinking about what can I do for myself at this point? Like get to another country, not be
mhm.
prosecuted. What kind of deals can I make? Like they weren't fighting. They were like every man for himself, like what's going to be the best for me? And I think it kind of shows there was really a core of people behind a lot of what happened, and the belief just wasn't there once Hitler was gone, once the Americans got into Germany, they were kinda like, "Oh, you know what? But I'm looking out for number 1."
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the thing about it also is you have different fractions within Germany which went against him
Yeah,
even before this. And
yes,
you've got a couple of great movies and a couple of different things. Tom Cruise was in one of those movies that was actually
yeah,
halfway decent
yeah,
about it. But I seeing this and coming through to it, it's interesting to see the atrocities of war and the different things about it. So let's get into this and let's get into the opening. I love that opening scene where it has the string quartet in the middle of the town. And apparently, Easy
yes,
Company was brought into this town. It was one of the most bombed towns in all of Germany. and the people really did try and do a good job of cleaning up everything.
Yeah,
But you see the string quartet.
Playing
Yeah.
Beethoven, not Mozart.
Hmm. Yep. Beethoven, because Beethoven was German.
Yeah,
Um,
what's the town?
I forget the name of the town. Hang on, it's in the book. The real town is
Yeah,
um,
but, it really shows a contrast. I mean, the music is beautiful, and to show these, men who are artists and playing this beautiful music with the backdrop of all the destruction and death, just really shows such a great contrast there, and how, people can be horrible and people can create beautiful things. I think it was a great scene to put, at the opening right there.
yeah, it was a stark contrast, and I think it gave set the tone for the whole thing,
Mhm.
because the music was just so beautiful. Um, okay, I can't find the name of the town. I forget, but it was
Oh,
a
yeah.
town.
No worries, I was just kinda curious to if
Yeah,
it
it was a
was like
town not that far from
this.
Munich, but it was one that was heavily
Okay.
bombed, and so they were picking up all the stuff. But I like it, and they show the town, and
So
yeah, I mean,
they're already near Munich. That was kinda
yeah,
what
they're
I
near
was getting
Munich.
at. So they're
Yeah,
not just across the border. Okay.
yeah, they're across the Rhine. It's on the Rhine. They're right near Munich. 2104 Dogface says, per the men of Easy, the Germans were the quickest to get to work on cleaning up. Yeah, I
Oh, yeah,
read in
I believe that.
uh, the book, Stephen Ambrose says that the Germans were, you could see their work ethic and everything they
Mhm.
did. And they were still going to church. They were still very, very
Yep.
much, by the book,
Yeah.
straight and arrow people. And it was one of those things. The other thing about it is that they weren't really supposed to fraternize. Now you had some people that tried to, but they said that you know, you didn't get all the stuff that Janovic, Tom Hardy's character, gets to do in this. That a lot of the women were Catholic and very chaste, that they try
Uh,
to pick up on. But
that's
um,
funny. It's been a long war. These guys have been,
yeah,
haven't seen civilization in a while, so they're probably, probably trying to get whatever they can.
oh, absolutely. Well, the thing about it, the reality is that they had been stationed in France and they had passes to go back to
Mhm.
to uh, England and France. So at this point, they
Yeah.
weren't as it makes
Well,
out
yeah,
in
if
the
they've been in France, they're probably
yeah,
alright then, I guess.
yeah, probably. But anyway, I just love how it pans up to the Easy Company men on top of that, looking down. I just think that's a great scene, beautifully shot.
Mhm.
That speaks to how well this show is done, where you have scenes like that where they can tell even part of the story without even having to give you lines, just the imagery. But then we shift to a month earlier, and we got a funny scene with Percani and Luz here.
Yeah, this is, pretty funny. Going into a barn, collecting eggs, trying to get an omelet, and Luz tries to, put the moves on, a farm girl who's, who's there, and it's pretty funny. It does she's not having any of it. He's not being very successful, and he keeps trying to get rid of Picani, like, "Go on, go away, like, go go make your omelet, leave me alone," trying to get it, and, he comes out the barn rubbing his jaw a little bit, so she kinda smacked him, put
Sniffing
him in
him
his
out.
place a little bit, yeah, I thought that was funny, but he's still, whatever, good happy and making jokes, and where, you don't try, you don't get, and he's just like, "Okay, that was alright."
Yeah, that was actually in the book. It's Webster and another guy who went and did that. Um, but I think it's perfect that it's Percani and Luz. And one other thing, real
Smokes and candy will get you stuff.
yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
pretty
so
funny.
real quick, Percani, if go watch him in this, the funniest thing about him is there are points where he doesn't have any lines and he's always brushing his teeth.
Yeah, I've noticed that, he does brush his teeth a lot.
He brushes his teeth a whole lot in this. I don't know if you ever noticed this, but I
Yeah,
don't know if it's real. The real guy did that, but it was
that's funny.
funny. It's just like, so we get to more about Percani because there's another cool scene that's funny with him and Spears. But
Mhm.
you have the chicken coop scene, and then Um, Spears is getting his silver, and Janik is having a little fun.
Yeah, Janek's getting another kind of silver, that's for sure. He's like high ho silver on that one.
And it's
She's
Tom
or the
Hardy's first
girl,
appearance on anything.
the girl is,
So,
yeah, that scene is hilarious because Spears walks in and he just jumps out of bed like totally naked and stands there and salutes. And Spears doesn't care. He's only interested in all the loot that he picked up. He's like, "Oh, where's my stuff? Okay, go by." He doesn't care one bit. So I thought that was
yeah,
hilarious. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
that
a
was
funny scene.
funny. Yeah. And the thing about it is that Spears was a big time looter.
Yeah,
And here's
bad.
what was going on. He was sending it to, so he had gotten married and she had a baby. And
Oh
he
wow.
was sending it to her in England so that she could provide, so he could provide, help provide for her and help
Oh,
provide for the baby. So that's what
okay.
was going on.
Interesting. So he married
Um,
someone in England while they were over
yeah,
there? The early
yeah.
looter as
So
shown in the series.
yeah, 2104 Dogface says Spears wasn't really a looter as it's shown in the series. The book says that he was, but he wasn't as greedy as he's made out to be in the series. Um,
Yeah, he looks pretty bad in the series, and I don't know if they do that, like, exaggerate it for effect. Because they show him kinda bribing the male guy with cigarettes, and he makes a comment, and Spears just kinda gives him a look, like, intimidating look, and it's like, "Oh, okay, never mind."
yeah. And hang on, let me add to the stage some of these things. So there's the musicians in Munich that we talked about. There's the
Oh,
chicken
yeah.
coop scene, the
Yeah.
Fräulein, she smacked me. And
Yeah.
there's the clean part about that. And
Yeah, standing at attention.
yeah, yep. And there's the look. So it's kind of funny because he's this hard butt guy, and he kind of gives a grin. So,
Yeah, he's
but
good there.
uh, but next we talk about Nixon and his jump, and um, so the Easy Company and their division wasn't selected to go on this, but they had one person go on as an observer, and that was Nixon. And unfortunately, the plane he jumped out of, I think it said three other guys in the book, and also he mentions here, got out before the plane went down over Germany. So it's kind of sad and a whole lot of casualties. So he had to write all that. Real quick,
Yeah,
2104 Dogface said it was easier for officers to send home loot. Uh, enlisted had a harder time. So yeah, I can imagine.
yeah, not surprising.
So
Yeah,
and
that was
then
interesting about Nixon and the jump, right? I mean, because Nix looks really pissed off, like right away coming in on the Jeep. And he's been so laid back throughout this whole series that just kind of like a devil may care kind of guy. And he looks pissed off. This is the first time we kind of see cracks starting to show in his personality. And it's funny when, you're probably gonna talk about this, but, Winters comes in, tells him about the demotion, and he doesn't, I mean, he's just like, "Yeah, whatever," like, he's more concerned about writing the letters back, and it really seems to get to him this time. I don't know if it's just now accumulated stress and everything that's happened, but he's really looking like now he's finally reaching a breaking point like some of the others had earlier. And
yeah,
he's getting, his drinking has gotten worse and worse and worse. I think he's severely addicted, maybe having a hard time finding booze. So he might be going through some withdrawals at the same time as, dealing with all this other stuff too. So, yeah, interesting to see his character in this episode.
yeah. No more hidden in Winter's Footlocker. Um,
Yeah,
anyway,
exactly. It's gone.
so 2104 Dogface said it was a plane near his that got hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, all I can confirm is that he was the jump master, but apparently the CEO of that unit that he was with was in the plane that got hit and died, and so he had to write all the dear, the letters home about the
Yeah.
boys,
Like,
and this is
right.
when he was talking to him, and he got demoted from back in the
Russia.
CEO to the battalion, and so it says in there that Sink, basically talked to Winters, and Winters felt like he could handle Nix, which is good. And you'll find that a lot of the Easy Company men made it to staff sergeant roles.
Mhm.
It even mentions our dear old friend Sobel was one of the lower battalion staff members on here.
Oh,
And
jeez.
next episode we'll see Sobel again. So kind of fun.
Does he get promoted or is he still a captain? I just wonder if Winters
He's still a
outranks him.
captain.
Okay, so
Mhm.
Winters outranks him now, which is
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, the scene in the next episode was in the book. So yeah. And then 2104 Dogface shed some more light for us. Thank you so much. For Nixon being one of the few with 4 jumps, there were others in the 101st who did, especially the Pathfinders, some of the Filthy 13 also. Yeah, he was one of the few with that many jumps. And he actually mentions he's never fired his weapon in combat.
That I found amazing in the scene where he says he never fired his weapon in combat, which I know he was like with Battalion HQ, he was always kind of back. He was never like
Mhm.
right up front with the guys, but that was really something to say he never fired his weapon the whole
Well,
time.
especially in Normandy.
Yeah, I was amazed.
Yeah, it was crazy, but apparently he was extremely intelligent, and they recognized that in him, so that's why they kind of kept him back.
Right.
But I thought this was a funny scene. You got
Yeah.
all the men gathered, and Nix is telling them the current events, and I love this scene where he talks about, "Hey, Oklahoma's still on Broadway," and Luz starts to lead him, and then the new
Yeah.
guy O'Keefe,
With
he
Keith.
he goes,
It's super high. Yeah. He's
yeah.
singing super high, and then one of the guys is like, "Are you sitting on your bayonet?"
Yeah, and O'Keefe
That
was
was
kind of
funny.
embarrassed.
That was good.
Yeah, and so I thought that was good, and it's kind of fun to give you some updates and stuff, and it shows, you know, Nixon and his other role, but it's kind of funny. And then after that, you got Percani and O'Keefe going in here and on their duty and stuff, and I thought it was an interesting scene because it talks about replacements versus the guys that had been in the war for a while,
Mhm.
and some of the ways that they were treated. I think they were a bit tough, but I don't know at this point they were as tough as they're making it out to be here. I read in the book that, you know, the replacements came in and they were trained by winners. But, I think the men kind of were helpful trying to get through it because everybody thought that, hey, we're coming up at the end of the war. Let's just get out of here with our lives. But um,
Right.
it was
Yeah,
interesting,
for
this
sure.
scene. What did you think of this one?
Yeah, I really like this scene, because you get to see O'Keefe, he's just gotten there, right? He's all gung ho, like, "Let me fight the Germans," wanting to see some action, and, Percani is just like, um, "This is the best we've had it, like, we've got food, we've got warm showers, like, we're finally thinking we're gonna live through" like, O'Keefe hasn't seen the horrors of that these other guys have seen, and he's like, "Yeah, just I'm ready to fight." And I think it's interesting that the contrast that they show there. I really liked seeing this scene, and
I
also
think,
I thought it was funny too when he comes up right, like the other guy gives him the book, and he's like, "Any sex in it?" He's like, "No, it's not that kind of book."
yeah. Do you know the name of the book?
A tree grows in Brooklyn.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, which, the funny thing is that's always used in Looney Tune, in Looney Tune episodes. To get the
Yeah.
dog, yeah, tree goes to Brooklyn. I know, but I think this scene really, it's pivotal in here, and I don't think you think about it, but this is here for artistic reasons as well, because this is to show the contrast about the horrors and atrocities of war later on that they're going to see when they
Mhm.
when they go in the concentration camp. So this one kind of sets up the innocence and how one feels about the war, and then you're going to see O'Keefe's reaction to that, which I think is interesting and set up beautifully by the Band of Brothers writers and directors here, contrasting everything to give
Right.
you more perspective on what these guys did.
You
Uh,
see it one more time too before they get to the concentration camp, right? As they're driving, as they
mhm.
pass, it's a building, and I don't know if the guys were, like, holding up there trying to still fight or if they were just prisoners, but you see them just get executed, by the Americans. The German soldiers just get executed, and O'Keefe is just looks appalled and shocked, and Berkante's just like, "Eh, you know, that's that's how it goes," and you can really see the contrast and what it's done to them having, the intense fighting for a year, versus someone who's just gotten there, the complete difference.
Yeah. And then again, it's not just dialogue and it's not just good acting. It's telling the story visually. And you see the visual aspects of this scene in the machine gun's nest here. And then you see it on the road as you were expecting, and then you're going to see it later on in the concentration camp. You're visually giving somebody what it's like to come into this situation and go
Mhm.
through just that little bit, which I think is very good storytelling and part of this medium that we need to have and what we need to have uh, in our media today. We're missing.
Yeah.
I don't know your thoughts on that. I just wanted to take that tangent because I think it's important because I think we take this kind of visual storytelling for granted.
Yeah, just the characters, right? The way that they're acting, like they don't even have to say anything. Like Prakata just looks scruffy. He's relaxed. He's reading. O'Keefe is totally buttoned up, checking the gun. Got his helmet on, looking through the scope. I mean, they're acting so differently, and yeah, you could really they draw that contrast just in what they're doing.
Yeah, 2104 Dogface says that it was the French troops killing the POWs.
Okay.
Tom Hanks is
Oh, okay.
pulling the trigger. Oh, wow. So another appearance of Tom Hanks. Did not know that. Thank you. But yeah, it's interesting. All right. So as we get in, we're going to talk a little bit more about the officers and some of their experience, a little bit more about Nixon. Here's the mailroom, and here's Janik again. But Nix gets a dear John letter. So I thought this was sad and funny in a way. Um, Before we get into that, though, Nix tells the other officers that the president is dead. Nobody really reacts to that, and then he goes looking for Vax VAT 69. Can't find it in a drugstore that he breaks into. Can't find it anywhere, and then he goes to the post office to get them to order it for him. And he's like, "Oh, it'd be extra charge," and Nix is like, "No problem."
Yeah.
He gets his-
He's gonna
yeah,
pay pretty much anything at that point, right? He's trying to break
yeah,
into stores, break into houses, he's looking a little bit rough, yeah.
yep. And
Um,
then he gets the Dear John letter, and oh my gosh, that's funny.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, I think, like, the Dear John letters just in general, like, I don't know, I get that, right, you might fall in love with someone else and not want to be married or not want to be with someone anymore. But for God's sake, just wait. Like, can't you wait? Like, why would you send, like, I just can't imagine the kind of person who would send someone a letter like that while they're away at war. Like, what is it on your part that you felt compelled to do that? I think it's horrible to do. Um, just aside, just kind of like the Dear John letter thing on
and they
its
had a
own.
kid.
His what like, I don't know in their relationship if it was that good anyway, like Nix and his wife, it doesn't seem like they liked each other that much anyway. I mean, he's more concerned about the house and the dog and whatnot. I mean, I'm not sure that he was actually heartbroken over it, and we don't know the context of that specifically, like what had gone on between them. But yeah, it's a horrible, horrible, horrible timing. Like, come on, just wait. Can you just wait until they get home from the war? Like, why do you need to do that then? I know.
Yeah. His reaction though, she took the dog. It's my dog,
I know, but he's real that's what he never is, like, heartbroken, like, "Oh my god," he complains about the house and the dog. Like, she took the house, that's his concern, which is so funny, which makes me think, like, I don't think he really cared about his wife that much.
Well, I think the other aspect about him and his life and the real life character is that um, he came from a wealthy family, he had a wealthy upbringing, he had a lot handed to him, but he also was very proper and very got his degree from Yale, was all this, but he never. I don't think he was ever truly happy. At the
Yeah,
point
he
in his
does he
life.
doesn't seem like he's a happy person, that's why he's always drinking,
Yeah,
but, Sigvaldison in the chat says, "At least they have the courtesy of breaking up versus cheating," and the guy never knows. He's heard many stories of that in the modern military. Though that's true, I didn't really think of that. At least I guess you're being honest and you're not cheating behind someone's back. It just seems like such an awful thing to do to send someone a letter, like, when they're away fighting, but I guess I could see that side of it too, so yeah, hail to Sigvaldison. Also, Jedi Master 2022 in the chat. Good to
yes,
see good to see
good
you
to see
guys.
you too. Yep. Anyway, it also as they're going on, you've got the song on the road, and it's very real. There's a footnote in there that says that the song was very real, and 2104 Dogface says, so the song "Blood Upon the Riser" was a must to sing in the barracks. Uh, every at every event, especially when drinking, he and Bill were shit faced singing it while sitting on a foot locker. That's hilarious. That's
That's
awesome.
great. I love that song, actually. I love that part when they sing the song. That's so
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, I love that. Another funny thing, kind of right around that point, was Spears. He tries. Percane's got a lighter that he must have snagged, and Spears
yeah,
is like keeping it. Just like, come on, give it back. Like,
yeah,
yeah, nice lighter. He's trying to snag something again. I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah,
yeah,
I love that song. I think it's great. And Nix is still carrying on about the dog. Like he does it like several times. It's pretty funny.
yeah. But they go through the countryside, and I do think some of these shots are very beautiful.
Yeah, really
So
beautiful. It's a beautiful country, beautiful part of the country too, the Alps.
yeah, and I like how they're talking. Didn't have any shots of this, but they're talking about what's going to happen uh, when the war ends and what they're going to do. And you talked about Liebgott talk with Webster, and do you want to say what Liebgott said?
Oh, where Liebgott's talking about finding the woman and with some
Uh,
assets and
yes.
making babies. Is that that part?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
that was pretty funny.
Yeah, and Tom Hardy's character Janik is reading a book about the war, and he's talking with the gloves, and he's like, "Oh, okay, what does it say?" And he says, "Well, apparently the Germans are bad." And Luz is like, "Hey, Brigati, this book says the Germans are bad."
Yeah, Les was pretty funny there, but I thought that was like it's an interesting um comparison also, right? Where they're talking there, they're talking about all these you see these horrible atrocities. A lot of it is kind of under the direction of certain groups of people, but the opening comments from the men, where they were talking about, hey, like we might have liked the same things under different circumstances. We might have been friends. They were doing what they had to do. We were doing what we had to do. So I found that was an interesting kind of contrast there.
Yeah.
Hey, Stark of Iron.
Yes. Hail, Stark of Iron. Glad you're here. Um, the soldiers banter in the back of the deuce never changes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me. But it's interesting. It's funny, and yeah, of course you see the people getting shot, and then wow, the German army surrendering. Wow.
Yeah, en masse, and that's what, where they were talking about 300,000
Mm.
surrendered, and I mean, I thought to me, it felt like, they keep talking about, "Oh, they maybe, hold out and fight to the last man." Nope, they're ready to be done. The average soldier, the average person is, I think, done. They're no not wanting to continue this.
Yeah, I absolutely. The other aspect of this is that Winters is kind of admiring his enemy, saying that hey, they're still marching in line with pride.
Mhm.
Um, versus what we see Webster doing, and it's interesting because Webster just gets angry and just
Is
why
he
are
li
we
is
yeah,
he
go ahead.
like that in the book,
No,
Webster?
actually he couldn't stand cursing, but got used to it later. But um, he was, you know, a lot of the guys, I think this is enhanced because they're trying to show you contrast to understand why we fight. A lot of the men actually did respect the Germans that they fought
Right.
against and
To
didn't
me,
have
this
all
was
this.
it was coming more from the directors and the writers, was my
Yeah.
guess, him voicing that because it just
Mhm.
I don't know, it was a little bit annoying, and I don't know, I didn't feel like that was his character initially. I felt like, well, this is the writers using this character to voice their opinions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, it's just like it's trying to reinforce why we're over there. I get it, and I think it's good, but it's just I don't know. Um,
Oh, yeah, Sigvaldason says Goebbels kept talking about that on the radio, that Germany would keep fighting. I mean, I think they thought that they would keep fighting. They might have wanted to, but like the average soldier, the average people, you know, it wasn't a large it that was not a lot of the people did not hold that opinion. I'm sure that was what they wanted to happen, what they wanted people to do, but no.
yeah, absolutely. And so we get into the town, and Nix breaks into or goes in this lady's house and discovers that her husband was one of the German officers.
Yeah, he wasn't SS, was he, or was he just an officer? I
I
couldn't
couldn't
tell from the
tell.
photo what it was.
Yeah. It was interesting. And he goes in and he's looking at her stuff and looking at her records and finds some drinks. But
The exchange between them with no words spoken is just great. Like, just the looks
mhm,
on both of their faces does so much, and they just keep going back and forth between the 2 of them, their expressions. I mean, it's like a whole conversation without saying one word. I thought that this whole scene is really well done. And you could tell she's very proud. I don't think she thinks that she's in the wrong at all. She would be one of those people who, um, would think that they're totally in the right. I mean, she just seems like that very proud, arrogant kind of demeanor about her.
yeah. And I think she thinks also because her husband's an officer that maybe she was more privileged than some. Um,
Yeah.
but it's an interesting contrast. And I think it's an interesting contrast to Nixon's character. Um, it's interesting. Sigvaldason says, if I recall, the photo was of a Wehrmacht
The
officer.
Wehrmacht. The
Yeah,
Wehrmacht,
the
okay.
Wehrmacht. So interesting stuff here. And then we have the patrol, and the patrol is actually a pretty funny scene. And here's our guy Bull in a small brief scene of it. But Picani says something that's interesting to Luz. He goes, "Wow, with all this force and stuff, didn't it remind you of Bastogne?" And Luz is, "Yeah, the trees and not getting shelled and having everything falling in front of us. Yeah, it's a lot like Bastogne." and
Yeah, that was really funny. I
he
like
goes,
that.
"Bull, smack him for me."
Yeah. I also like Bull here with, O'Keefe, where
Yeah,
O'Keefe is really nervous. He's like, "Why are you so jumpy? You can hear your heart pounding in, Arkansas, boy."
yeah,
Just giving him grief over being new and, being nervous. I like that.
yeah. It's crazy. And then they come upon the concentration camp, and you just see Percani high putting it back to base, trying to find winners or some of the officers. And for him, he gets to ride in the Jeep on the way back. But I wonder how far out they were, because he really hot footed. And then they're kind of on the concentration camp. And for me, this is the hardest scene to watch, where they're there and they're not sure what to do. So just so you guys know, when they filmed this, they held out and didn't show the actors at concentration camp until they shot the scene. And
Oh,
so
interesting.
the reactions on the actors' faces would be just as genuine as it would have been for the men had they discovered one of these things. And it's very interesting that they had it all locked up, and the men were just waiting for orders to open up. And you see they've got some of the medics with them and everybody else. And so they go in to the prison, and it's just it's insane. You see Winters here, and they're going to open it up, and then what you see is just awful. I mean, it's just rough to take. And they talk to Liebgott. They bring Liebgott up here because he speaks German, and they bring him into this, and he's talking to one of the main guys, and Liebgott translates the account of the prisoner, tells him that they're all Jews, musicians, clerks, artists, teachers. Poles or gypsies considered undesirable in the Germans. A few days before, the SS guards burned some of the prisoners alive in their huts. When others resisted, the guards began shooting at them until they ran out of ammunition, then fled, leaving the survivors behind. Also, I think there's a mention of a women's concentration camp further down the road as well, which just, oh my goodness, was crazy. And we see some of the men going around. Malarkey and another member see some of the people with the numbers on their wrists, and that indicates that they may have been at Auschwitz, which my understanding is Auschwitz was the only one that put numbers on their people. But the scene, all these people that are in here that are playing the people in the concentration camps, just like 2104 Dogface mentions, they're all cancer patients that are extras here. So
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I remember when watching this, like, I can see, like, gaining weight or losing a ton of weight for, like, a leading role or a main part, but I'm like, "How did they get all these extras so thin?" Because this is, like, way beyond makeup. You can make people look sickly with makeup, but they're so skinny. It's like, where did they find all these people who look so horrible? And so that was a a really interesting fact, that they really are sick. I mean, God, how awful. But, yeah, it really worked because you see them, you're like, "Oh my god, they all look like they're just starving to death." And, the actors, the Easy Company actors do a great job at this too, because it would be hard to imagine what you would feel stumbling onto something like this. I mean, now we know what happened, but they would have had no idea coming across something like this and then seeing something so horrible. So, just what they're able to communicate with their face without overacting, without being over dramatic, but still being able to portray how disturbing, how shocking, and just how horrible it is. I thought
mhm.
this scene is just really well done.
Yeah, to describe some of the scenes. So 2104 Dogface, who knew some of the men there, said Easy Men wouldn't even open up to them about this. The one time Babe did, he was drunk late at night, and he broke down crying. I can't imagine what
Yeah,
he
I'm
saw.
sure. That would
But
haunt you the rest of your life,
oh my goodness,
seeing
yeah.
this kind of stuff. You just yeah.
Yeah. So in this, it said many more dead corpses litter the area. Malarkey and Heffron, who I mentioned, grimly note that the number of tattoos on dead prisoners' arms, marking them like cattle. Randleman, which meant they were at Auschwitz. Randleman and Luz discover a hut jam packed with living and dead persons lying shoulder to shoulder. And Winters opens a rail car to find it stuffed with corpses. Appalled, Percani walks away only to see a prisoner saluting him, which I thought that was
Yeah.
touching and sad. And then he sees O'Keefe, who's broken down into tears at what is seen. But instead of giving him grief like he had been the rest of the time, he kind of just leaves him alone. And you see so some of this, I'm just going to go through quickly because it's just so awful. But um, you see some of the devastation, some of the stuff, and Janix responding to that. It's hard to watch and even visualize, even keeping that up for a second. But you see the remaining parts. So we saw them at the gun part. We saw them on the road, and now Percani's like, okay, now you understand what I've been through. Now you
Mhm.
understand, and O'Keefe's breaking down because of that. and
Right.
so he now has an understanding, and that's visual storytelling. That's understanding, you know, it through O'Keefe's eyes and through Percani's eyes, and it's an
Yeah.
interesting contrast that I think gets overlooked, but I think is really, really great visual storytelling here.
Yeah.
Um, and then after that, so they decide to get him food. We see Lipton getting him blankets. He has a brief mention here, but this one scene where they're going to get food, I thought was interesting. Heather, do you want to talk about this scene with Webster
Oh, from
and
this guy,
Anchor?
yeah, Webster, like, kind of freaks out at the German baker as he comes in to take his food, take everything from the shop, and the guy protests, and he just pulls a gun on him and kinda goes off on him, and, um, yeah, I mean, I can see you've just seen a horrible scene like that. You're not gonna have any tolerance for someone saying, "No, no, you can't take my food," right? You're gonna just blow up and explode. Whether the citizens knew or not has always been a debatable question to me. Like, I'm sure some did. I mean, some may have thought it was just a prisoner camp. I mean, I don't know how many actually saw it or would have seen it in person. Um, I just to me, that's always an open question. How much like average citizens knew about it and didn't know? And I think it kind of depends.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much they knew. They may have knew some, but I mean, it's just it's interesting because remember Nixon makes that comment because they told him that the guards had locked the doors and ran away. So
Mm,
someone in town must have tipped him off
right.
uh, that they were coming. So and who knows? I mean, they could have been the wife of that officer. I don't know.
Right. Well, some
Um,
did, right, because the officers would have had to come to the town. They probably
yeah.
lived there, so they were back and forth. Some people would have known. I just don't know that, like this baker, would the
Mhm.
average person have known the extent of it? Probably not. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Agent Pepsi 1, the authorities kept the camps absolutely secret. They were told that they were prisoner labor camps, right, as were common during that era, right? There would have been prisoner labor camps, and probably every single person is not going to go out there and see the camp. It's going to be a limited circle. So, yeah, remember
Yeah.
this Thursday, May 8th is VE Day. Absolutely.
Yep. Absolutely. Victory in Europe. Yep. And then we're coming up at the end of the month. It's Memorial Day
Hmm.
as well. So, but yeah, and a lot of mention about some of the actors in here. A lot of them got their starts here, as we mentioned. Tom
Yeah,
Hardy's first on screen. Um, so it's interesting. They get all this food and they start to give it away, and then Colonel Sink comes back with the regimental surgeon who tells them probably the most heartbreaking, and awful thing that they have to put them back in there because they have to monitor their treatment. So if they eat too fast, it could cause more problems, which
right,
is sad to even think about. And my understanding is the Real Easy Company did see these people, not necessarily in the concentration camp, but after they were being sorted out of the concentration camp and being monitored by these regimental surgeons and these people. So they did
right.
see the all this stuff. They just didn't liberate a camp or anything like that, but it's close to it. Um, let's see. All the camps had
Yeah,
a buffer zone posted as a military zone with severe punishment for anyone getting near the camps. Okay, that makes sense.
yeah,
Thanks,
that does make
2104
sense.
Dog Face. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. So,
Yeah,
yeah, anyway,
it's
so
heartbreaking though that they had to put them back in. I mean,
mhm.
there's no I get we can't like let them eat everything they want so they don't make themselves sick and they got to get medical treatment, but locking them back into there, like even temporarily, it's just horrible.
Oh, yeah, that had to be I mean, I can't
Mm,
imagine what one of the prisoners might have thought.
I
"Oh my god,
know.
first you give us food, then you put us back? Oh, no." And then Agent Pepsi One says the reason the government kept it so secret is because the government feared revolt, not just from the civilian population, but from the ranks of the military.
Yeah, soldiers are many things, but not barbarians. Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of was my point that earlier, right? Is the atrocities that were engineered by the SS and a lot of the higher ups weren't really the case. Um, it's just not the case for the average guy who's in the military and just kind of doing what he's supposed to be doing. So,
Yeah. And
yeah.
then, for Liebgott having to tell him that, oh my gosh, that must have been gut wrenching.
Mm, yeah. That whole scene is really heartbreaking, that point.
Yeah, I think it's more heartbreaking than seeing the all the visuals. So there's them talking, and then we find out before this scene here, we find out that martial law is declared, and the people of the town have to go clean up and bury the bodies. And we see the German woman again trying to bury a body, and that was interesting for Nix to see her doing that. So I thought that
Yeah, and again, they just have this visual exchange, right? No words spoken. It's just the looks back and forth between them and um, just speaks so much without saying anything. I thought that was really well done too.
Daryl Dye will be in Gettysburg this coming weekend with many other Band of Brothers actors for the film fest. Yeah, if you're near
Oh,
Gettysburg, go check that out. So, and then Agent Pepsi One says historical fact: during the Battle of Stalingrad, German soldiers were dying from a mysterious disease. The top surgeon was called to investigate. He had to thaw corpses. They had zero body fat.
mm,
Yikes. Okay.
wow. So the soldiers themselves were just starving? I mean, that's awful.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
So, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's just it's crazy. Yeah, and then we get back to the scene with the players, and Nixon gives us the other news that Hitler's dead, and now they're on to Berchtesgaden.
Yeah.
Mm.
Getting to go to Berchtesgaden, I mean, it was so funny that they're all kinda complaining, right? Because they had all been saying how they wanna jump into Berlin and seem, like, disappointed they don't get to jump into Berlin. It's like, "God, you get to go to Berchtesgaden, which is beautiful, and it's the eagle's nest." I mean, that's such a better, like, they don't know it, but that's the prize, not Berlin. So, I thought that was funny throughout the whole thing that they're disappointed, but they don't know, where they're
Yeah,
going.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's crazy, and it ends with the quartet finally finishing their piece and locking everything up. And I thought it was a fitting end and beginning, but
Yeah.
um, you know there's so many different things and facts about this that were interesting. Um, with the concentration camp and with some of the scenes, but I think it just made it so difficult to watch just seeing that. But I think it's very important. So as
Yeah,
we wrap this episode up, any other thoughts on this? Anything?
great way to end. I like how they did this, and not many, not always in this structure, but I thought it worked well for this episode of how they start with the string quartet, and then flashback, and then they end there back where they were. Um, Good way to do the episode. I like that. One thing I kind of wish I knew more about is the jump that Nix was a part of that the rest of the guys weren't, like how they tried to separate out another airborne division, which weren't like the 101st and the 82nd, who had already had a lot of experience. Just
Mhm.
the idea behind that and what happened, I think was interesting. That's something that I'll probably look into more after this because I thought, not something I knew much about before this.
In the book, it mentions that they were trying to get another group to get experience jumping into Germany, but they wanted to save Berlin for the 101st and 82nd. If they had to jump into Berlin, it turns out at this point they didn't have to.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, it was interesting with Stig Valdesen says Germany was not able to have a prolonged war. Most generals knew about the drug intoxicated mustache man thought the Russians would fold, which turned out to be not to be true. Um, but yeah, it's crazy. I mean, um, Sig Valdesen even mentions World War II proved that Germany couldn't handle
World War
long-term
One,
war.
right?
Yeah.
World War One proved that, and they didn't learn their lesson, like trying to fight a war on two fronts, being split with Russia and the West. Um, yeah, that was not a learned lesson.
Well, and you had, Russia and Germany had yeah, the 17th had no combat jumps, so that's why they were picked for the varsity jump. Yeah, that's part of it too. Um, but I mean, they had a pact, and Hitler, our mustache man, violated it. So I mean, he thought they would fold, and they didn't. So it's just crazy. Um, Lombardi in 1969 wonders what they had to say about the fall of Berlin. I don't know. I mean, we're gonna find out that they go into Berchtesgaden, and you find out about VE Day and all of that with Berlin. So, and we see the German army surrendering. So, I mean, the Russians got there first, unfortunately. So,
Right, and I think they knew that, right? That the Russians were gonna get there first, just based on where everyone was at the time,
mhm.
and so they wouldn't have jumped in. I mean, Russia's advancing pretty quickly at that point, so
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's interesting. We're headed towards the end of the war, and the last episode is next week. So, let's see. 2104 Dogface says, "Well, when the guys heard about how bad the Russians had to fight for it, they were thankful the Russians had to take it." Yeah, I mean, I heard the Eastern Front was some of the most brutal fighting
yeah.
of the war. So, um, just interesting stuff. Let's see. Asian Pacific. Battle of Berlin cost the Soviets nearly 3 million in casualties. Oh my
Ooh,
gosh.
wow.
Wow. Crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, that's all the slides we have for this week. And this end of the episode, what'd you guys think of this episode? Let us know. Let's leave some comments. But Heather, let's go ahead and plug away. What have you got coming up? I know you're not a YouTuber, but you're a wrench.
Yeah, Wrench on Doomcock's channel, so, hope to see you guys all at, PCB in the chat and also on Friday Night Frolics. And
Yeah.
thanks for coming. Thanks for everyone to the chat for coming here. It's always so great. This chat is so much fun. Everyone who's here. Love seeing you guys every week.
Yeah, please like and share. And then also please leave us comments afterwards. That helps the video get noticed and the podcast get noticed. Um, Pop culture breakdown. We've got our movie of the week. It's Double Indemnity, which is an interesting movie. Um, and we'll talk about it. It's from the 1940s, but it's a fascinating film. We'll also probably talk more about Andor and a Doctor Who as well. And then on this channel next week, same time, we'll do episode 10, which is points, and it's the final episode. And then in 2 weeks, we will do the hits of 1971, which is an interesting year.
Yeah,
So we've
a
got a
good
lot of
year.
good songs. Yeah, a lot of good songs from 1971. So if you guys like music, we'll have that. And then I go on my trip, the Band of Brothers tour. So we'll be on hiatus for a couple weeks. But in June, when I get back, I'll have a bunch of pictures, hopefully, and I'll be able to share some of the pictures. And we'll do an episode where I just show all the pictures and I talk about my trip, and we'll be able to review Band of Brothers with those pictures. So. Thank you again to everybody who's here. And, please like, subscribe, share the stream out. I know I'm not monetized yet. Still need like a couple thousand hours of watching. So we'll see. Hopefully these podcasts are helping, but hope you guys had a lot of fun. Thank you so much for all your comments and for uh, adding to the discussion. We love to hear it. Like we said, we're not historians. We just love the show, and we love reading about history, and that's what makes it great. Um, on Friday or Saturday, you should get an interesting package at your house. What did Agent Pepsi One send me?
Wow.
We'll
A
see.
infiltration, some spy equipment or something.
Oh yeah, who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Something for my trip. Anyway, But
Nice.
thank you guys again for being here. I hope everybody has a great week. Don't forget next week's Mother's Day as well. So, call or send a card to
Yeah,
your mom. And then also
absolutely.
don't forget VE Day is the 8th. And then coming up, we've got a Memorial Day coming up as well. So don't forget our fallen soldiers on that day, especially. So take care, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Bye. Happy
Bye.
Sunday.
See ya.